to dream to drift. We have hard work to do and loads to lift. Shun not the struggle, for the struggle, I tell you, is the gift. Be strong. Shall we pray? To you, God of many names, to divine reality of many people, we come today under the sun together. We come thankful for a brand new day, thankful as we look back 40 years for all of those who have worked within the struggle, indigenous people from all over the world, proclaiming their humanity, proclaiming life, proclaiming love. We thank you today for this administration. Thank you for our president. Thank you for our administrator today. Thank you for all of those who labor for truth, for love, for integrity. We pray now that you continue to bind us together, continue to allow us to be encircled by divine love. We thank you not today for the notion of kingdom, but we thank you for the notion of the beloved community. This is our prayer. The poet said he drew a circle to shut me out, a rebel, a heretic, a thing to flout. But love and I had the will to win, and we drew a circle that took him in. Amen. And thank you, Administrator, for drawing wider circles. God bless you.
Next, we welcome on stage Environmental Protection Agency's Senior Advisor to the Administrator for Environmental Justice, Robin Morris Collin.
Thank you so much. Thank you, dear friends and honored guests. Thank you, Warren County residents, for making this occasion feel like family. Much, much thanks to you. Today we are gathered to honor the history of this place and also to proclaim a new day in the history of environmental justice and civil rights in this country. At EPA, we began this journey to our new era with a commitment to make environmental justice and civil rights a core principle for every program, every region, every act that we take. And thanks to our courageous, fearless, tireless administrator, every program, every region has stepped up to this challenge. Today, we are committed to erasing a legacy that has tied toxic waste and race together. You know what I'm talking about. So we made that journey beginning on faith, beginning with a commitment to you, to our communities on faith. And then came the money. I say this because, as I am reminded by our good pastor, we make this commitment on faith, and then we have the resources from where they need to flow to where they need to flow. So our commitment began with our faith, and it was fulfilled with resources. I know that that is a challenge, but let's take a moment, just a minute, to acknowledge how richly God has blessed this movement. Yeah. Along with the resources came a direct promise from our president, a promise we have not had anything like before. He promised us that 40% of the benefits of these immense resources, did I mention 100 billion? Our administrator likes to spell that out for us. That's B, billion with a B. But our president said that 40% of that money, the benefits of that money, would flow to communities that had been disadvantaged. We know what those communities are. We know where they are. We're standing at the fountainhead of that movement. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of commitment. And I want to focus us on a bigger number, because 100% of that money, every single penny of that money, must comply with the civil rights laws of this country. None of that money can be spent to resuscitate racism, to reinvigorate racism, to recreate racism. Not 1 cent can legally be spent that way. And so, as we enter this new day, I want to close my remarks by saying I know that the time for fighting isn't over, and yet it is our time to build. The time for us to build has come. And so I want to call on all of our creators, all of our growers, all of our builders, all of the people who make stuff. This is your time. This is the time when you too, much like our agency, must step out on faith and step up on faith, because it's our time to build with the resources that we have been given. So thank you very much to all of you, and especially to my administrator, Michael Regan. Thank you.
Now, please welcome EPA's National Environmental Justice Advisory Council co-chair, Sylvia Orduño, to say a few words.
Greetings. Hello, everyone. It is such a delight to be here. I'm almost kind of silly with happiness. And so this has been a long time coming. And so I just, again, want to really express what an honor and joy it is to be here, especially on this national location of where the EJ movement was birthed, right? Where so many people have worked for so long to see the fruits of their distress, their labor, and what they deserve, right, to have healthy lives. I want to just acknowledge that I've had the privilege of working on the NEJAC for over 3 administrations now, with 4 EPA administrators, and nothing matches the tremendous opportunities and advances in environmental justice that we're seeing today under this president and with his courageous EPA leader. Nearly 29 years ago, on September 30th, 1993, the NEJAC was established as a federal advisory committee to the EPA. Its formal role is to advise and provide recommendations to the EPA administrator on EJ issues, but its establishment is much more than that. It's an acknowledgement and a result of the EJ movement and EJ leaders who have sought to bring attention and action to the issues in their communities for decades. I'm joined today by one of the exemplary members of the NEJAC, with whom I share chairing duties, and that's Mike Tilchen, who's in his own right an industry leader on EJ issues, along with the tremendous leadership of Dr. Nataki Osborne-Jelks, who's unable to be with us here today, but we are actually here along with several other NEJAC members like Jerome Shabazz, Leticia Colon de Mejias, and Dr. Ambrose Carroll. Under Administrator Regan's leadership, the NEJAC is engaged like never before. And the consultation and recommendations that we provide to EPA offices and programs through our charges, work groups, and public meetings are met with meaningful engagement. We continue to contribute to agency-wide strategic plans and are actively engaged in enlisting agency responses to the ways in which unprecedented federal funding for real relief and responses in disproportionately impacted communities will be prioritized among EPA guidance, policies, and resources. Furthermore, we are insisting as a council that the EPA make transparent in these extraordinary financial investments how impacted low-income communities of color, tribal governments, and indigenous people, and territories will be direct beneficiaries and determiners of their solutions and outcomes. I'd like to recognize the stellar EJ career staff at the EPA who have kept the NEJAC running for almost 3 decades and helped set up the NEJAC sister advisory body, the White House Environmental Justice Council, that's led by several former NEJAC members. In particular, Dr. Matthew Tejada has provided unrelenting support to the council as its director for more than a decade and is among the NEJAC's strongest public advocates for understanding the council's unique history, role, and activity across EPA federal advisory bodies. So as we recognize and celebrate this momentous occasion, we know it's important to acknowledge the indigenous land upon which we gather and for which they have long told us about the need to protect the earth. Thank you very much.
Now, we welcome Halawa-Saponi Indian Tribe Chief Dr. Ogletree Richardson on stage.
Good afternoon. As Chief, I bring greetings to you on behalf of the Halawa-Saponi Indian Tribe. It is truly an honor for us to be a part of this environmental justice event today. I'm happy to say that in 2017, the Halawa-Saponi Indian Tribe hosted an environmental justice forum at our tribal government complex. During that forum, concerns were raised about environmental issues such as the protection of our waters, lands, ancestors, sacred places, coal ash, and PCB. Today, our concerns remain the same. At this time, I would like to recognize some other Halawa-Saponi Tribal Council members. Would you please raise your hand? Thank you. Again, I bring greetings on behalf of the Halawa-Saponi Indian Tribe, and I want to say thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to be a part of this environmental justice event. Thank you.
Next, we welcome leaders from Warren County and the original protest. Please welcome Executive Vice President, Environmental and Social Justice Metropolitan Group, Bernice Miller-Travis.
I should have asked them to pull that sign down. It's kind of hard to see 5'2" me, but you can hear my voice. Good afternoon, everyone. This is, as Dolly said, the day the Lord has made. Never thought we would be together like this in celebration like this. And I just have to lift up something Dolly said. Oh my God, Bernice and Warren County. And I'm ashamed to say that though my work, my life, my career is based on the work that happened here in Warren County, today is the first time I've ever been here. So that's why Dolly said what she said. Mark Twain once said and wrote that the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why you were born. For me personally, it was revealed to me what I was born to do when I started working at the United Church of Christ Commission for Racial Justice early in the summer of 1986. I went there to work as a research assistant to their then Director of Research, Charles Lee, who was leading the UCC Special Project on Toxic Injustice. And I'd like Charles to stand so you all can see my mentor and somebody who has meant so much to this work and this movement. Thank you, Charles. The research project was born from the efforts to support the organizing and experiences of residents and activists here in Warren County who were fighting the siting, construction, and eventual opening of a hazardous waste landfill where PCB-contaminated soil would be kept. The research project was seeking to answer some questions that first emerged from your efforts. Sorry, I lost my place. From more than 40 years ago. The questions were hazardous waste landfills being sited predominantly in Black communities without regard for the health and well-being of nearby residents and without regard for compliance with state and federal environmental regulations? The answer came back that yes, in fact, 3 out of every 5 hazardous waste landfills across the nation were sited in communities of color, predominantly Black, Latino, and other non-white peoples. But even more importantly, we found that race proved to be the most statistically significant indicator in where these landfills were located. We published Toxic Waste and Race in April of 1987, and the whole nation came to learn what you already knew here in Warren County and elsewhere, that people of color were being targeted because of who they were, because of the color of our skin. We built an entire social movement for environmental justice and to fight environmental racism out of your groundbreaking efforts here in Warren County. You have moved a nation to do better and to be better. For this I am, and all of us who work in the EJ space are forever in your debt. Without further ado, let me introduce two key leaders from the Warren County movement to speak, my beloved Miss Dolly Burwell and Reverend Bill Kearney. And also, can I ask all the Warren County movement leaders and activists who are here today to please stand. All the folks from the Warren County movement to please stand. And let us please acknowledge them.
Please welcome community activist and organizer, Miss Dolly Burwell.
Good afternoon. Administrator Reagan, Congressman Butterfield, elected and appointed officials, environmental justice leaders, activists, brothers and sisters. I am just beyond excited to have all of you in our beautiful county this afternoon as we conclude the commemoration and celebration of the birth of the environmental justice movement born right here in Warren County over 40 years ago. I'm deeply, deeply honored to have this opportunity to speak about all of the courageous and dedicated women, men, and children of all races who participated in our struggle. Many marched, went to jail, individuals served as bail bondsmen, women cooked and fed the protesters, preachers, elders, and others prayed daily and sometimes hourly for our safety. We received numerous other ordinary and amazing people performing numerous other tasks. We remain committed to this PCB dump until it was cleaned up and detoxified by the federal and state government in 2004. Let me just say how much I thank the Biden administration, it's a lot, and the Administrator Reagan for their commitment and investment in environmental justice. We are very, very grateful that Administrator Reagan, that you chose Warren County to make this announcement today. To us, you have acknowledged and recognized the work, the tremendous sacrifice, and the legacy of Warren County citizens and the many leaders across this country who started the environmental justice movement and who continue to fight for environmental justice. So for just a minute, I want to reflect on the 1982 Warren County PCB landfill protest. And I want to share a few remembrances that will forever be present in my memory. I remember the emotions of Warren County citizens, especially those living in the African community, on that day when the state of North Carolina announced that over 30,000 gallons of PCB-laced oil would be buried in a landfill in Warren County. I'm here to tell you that our emotions ran the gamut, from feeling fearful and powerless to experiencing a great deal of anger. But despite all of these emotions, we chose to act. In the fall of 1982, we organized and protested every day for 6 weeks, with hundreds gathering at Cola Spring Missionary Baptist Church in the Afton community, marching to the site of the landfill, blocking the trucks filled with PCB-laced soil, with hundreds, over 500 to be exact, being arrested and jailed. The Washington Post dubbed our efforts as the greatest protest, or the biggest civil rights movement since the 1960s. I often reflect on the bravery of my own late daughter, Kimberly Burwell. Although she was only 8 years old, she understood that bearing PCB-laced soil in a majority Black and poor and politically powerless community was not right. It was not just. So she stood up and led many children in the protest. Her statement to Dan Rather revealed that she was not afraid of being arrested, but she was afraid of her family and friends getting cancer. That statement drew many to join the protest. Yes, together we labor, and we gave birth to the environmental justice movement in America. I want to, like Bernice, I've lost my place. Finally, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told us, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. In 1982, Warren County, we bent the arc. Today, we hope that with this announcement and the policies, that it will yield great fruit, and that this community and other communities throughout this nation will be able to accomplish more of their environmental justice goals, such as culturally sensitive environmental health studies. And we will all, and it will all enable all of us to continue to be in the arc toward environmental justice.
Amen. What a beautiful day. To God be all the glory. I believe God is an environmentalist. I do. My work builds on the shoulder of those as Dolly and others who participated in protests. And on behalf of the members of the Warren County Environmental Action Team, many of them are here, raise your hands, that help coordinate the 30th anniversary and now the 40th anniversary. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Regan and all the other invited guests here on the Warren County Courthouse Square. What a great day. We are ecstatic about the wonderful partnerships that we formed to commemorate this momentous occasion. To think that the Afton community, a community I know as Kearneytown, located in the Shaka Township in Warren County, of all places, got dumped on, but found its voice, its collective voice, and rose to birth the environmental justice movement. A movement that has inspired individuals and communities around the globe to stand up for social and environmental justice. This year, we are intentionally highlighting, elevating, and celebrating names and stories of the many unsung heroes and sheroes. Those men, women, boys, and girls, some seen in many of the photos, and others not, who played significant roles in the success of the protest, minimizing the size of the landfill and eventually detoxification of the site. We realize there are still unanswered concerns regarding the negative impacts of toxic dump on environment, the health of the surrounding community, and Warren County's economy. We hope the 40th anniversary commemoration will be more than just a celebration, but will be more of a rallying together again of our collective voice to confront present-day social environmental injustices and to take full advantage of every opportunity for positive change. Can I get an amen? Just as the citizens of Warren County and supporters from across the country came together in September 1982 to oppose an injustice, we should work together to challenge systems and policies that are working adversely and unfairly against low-income communities and communities of color. I believe this is Warren County's season to rise to the occasion, to be the point of the spear of the environmental justice movement. After all, we birthed the movement. What man meant for harm, God meant for good. To God be the glory. Thank you.
Now, we'd like to invite all activists from the Warren County protests in the audience to please stand for recognition. We'd also like to offer a special recognition to former Congresswoman Eva Clayton. Now, we welcome Deputy Director of Advanced Carolina and board member for the NC Department of Environmental Quality's Environmental Justice and Equity Advisory Board, Professor Lamisha Whittington.
Thank you. So first, I would like to give honor to where my blessings flow, and that's from the Creator. I realize that as a product of North Carolina, a daughter of North Carolina, I wouldn't be here in this line of work without my elders. I wouldn't be here if at 7 years old my mother didn't tell me she was going to protest an environmental dirty corporation in our hometown in Western North Carolina. I wouldn't be here if I would have taken that job as a manager at a poultry plant. And my mom and grandma said, no, you're not. We're going to pray for you. You're going to go to the Capitol and you're going to go to school. You're going to finish your education and you're going to do something for your people. Don't you worry. And who knew that I would be fighting in a poultry plant, but on the other side for my people. So that's first. Today we recognize the individual movements and struggles of the elders from across the nation, because we have to understand that there are folks in here that have been fighting this fight for years that are inside North Carolina but outside of North Carolina leading the charge in their communities. So I honor your labor in traveling here to our state today, and the youth movement leaders who have honored and supported and been in the movement and struggle with you all. Today, we honor the labor of the birth of the environmental justice movement that gave us a banner under which we could unify and amplify our collective struggles to push back against the intentional targeting of our communities by dirty corporations. The same corporations who target our neighborhoods nationally are the same corporations causing global warming across the world. So the intersection of our oppression and climate injustice and environmental injustice cannot be disentangled. That's why corporate accountability, government enforcement, and resource allocation support for impacted communities. And lastly, honoring the legacy and current impact of those leading the struggle while still being in the struggle. It's critical to solve the issues and save our nation and in turn save the world. Because environmental justice is a global movement. From our beautiful coastlines, to the scenic mountains, to the powerful rural and urban communities of the United States South and across the nation, we collectively face cumulative impact. Our very existence is intersectional because our oppression comes in many packages. And we don't have the luxury to choose just one issue when we face many at the same time. Whether it's a contaminated food package laden with PFAS, whether it's a package of hog meat packed by workers who do not have or make a living wage and have no access to health care, while living in the same communities facing food insecurity, closing rural hospitals, radon-contaminated homes, forced in gerrymanders, with some of our votes diluted because politicians, some, now there are others that are good, I hope y'all recognize in this space who's here recognizing today, but some politicians who have chosen corporate profit and greed over the people. These are the same corporations that donate these dollars. They are responsible for the historic PCBs. They are responsible for the human-made contaminants such as PFAS and Gen X. So you see, our fight is intersectional because the impact on our lives is cumulative. So in honoring today, we also thank the United States Environmental Protection Agency and its administrator, Michael Regan, a son of North Carolina, a graduate of A&T University. Come on now. And thank you to the students, by the way, for joining me from A&T, by the way, in Bennett College. Thank you. Come on now. Come on now. But we thank you, Administrator Regan, for prioritizing the health and safety of our nation's most impacted communities and working to create a safe environment for us all and continuing this legacy. Above that, thank you for honoring us, the people. Honoring the elders who made our pathway of liberation possible today, and to the fighters who continue that legacy. Today is another historic day, not just because we are celebrating history, but because we are making history, and today we are all on the right side of that history.
Now, we welcome co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II.
GK said, come on. I started telling him I'm coming fast as I can. I might can't run you, but I'll outlimp you. All that matters in the movement is that you're in it. However you get it. Moses had a stutter. Elijah had depression. Jeremiah had tears. And Jesus was acquainted with sorrow. But they were in the movement. And thank God for you allowing me to be here today, Secretary Reagan, Congressman G.K. Butterfield, who I remember when you integrated, desegregated the courts in East North Carolina and desegregated Wilson County. Congresswoman Clayton, I grew up sleeping on your floor way back in the day when my father, Leon White, and others used to meet over in Bricks, North Carolina. I remember the PCBs here when they were dumping them in the ditches at night, and folk were having prayer revivals because so many people were coming down with cancer. And Leon White and others, my father, late William Barber, said, why don't we go out at night and find out what's causing the cancer, not just pray about the cancer. And that's when they found the trucks, you remember, darling, putting them out. You know, it's been a long struggle, and we still have a long struggle to go. So much so that my son is here today, who is an environmental lawyer, and today and working with Climate Reality. And I come here today to represent the Poor People's Campaign, also repairers of the breach. And I heard somebody at the Poor People's Campaign. Secretary Reagan and to President Biden, and most of all of all the poor and low-wage communities across this nation, which makes up 140 million people. That's how many poor and low-wealth people we have in the richest nation in the world. 140 million. That's 43% of the adult population and 52% of all the children in America. 4 million people who today get up every morning and can buy unleaded gas and can't buy unleaded water. That's why, Secretary Reagan, you have come to this position for such a time as this. 60.9% of all black people are poor and or low wealth. That is within $500 of an emergency catastrophe. That's 26 million people. But 30% of all white people are poor and low wealth. That's 66 million people. So black people are 40% higher in percentage in terms of disparate impact of poverty. But white people are 40 million in terms of raw numbers. Here we are. And it doesn't matter where you're in Cancer Alley in Louisiana, where I've been there fighting, or down in Alabama, where a woman said that she had so much sewage in her front yard that the only thing that she didn't have contaminating her was HIV/AIDS, and she wasn't sure that that also wasn't in the sewage. Or whether it's down in Duplin County, a chicken plant trying to put a manure burning factory and tell the people and tell the politicians, oh, we'll give you a little money, you know, little money, but they didn't tell you is that when you light fire to chicken manure, you get airborne arsenic. And no matter how you build a smokestack, if the arsenic, if the air goes up, once it goes up, it doesn't stay in the black community. It goes all over. And I remember being on the back of the tractors with white folk and black folk down in Duplin County when we got them to understand what is Goober gonna say when they find out the sweet potatoes you selling them for baby food is in a place where they put a manure-producing, arsenic-producing plant in your community, but they put it in the black community to fool you to think it's gonna stay over there, when in fact, once it gets airborne, you have come for such a time as this. Now, the scripture is clear. The Bible says the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. That means none of this really belongs to us in the first place. The scripture is clear that God said he called people, he told humanity, you have dominion, but the word dominion there in Hebrew means to take care of, not to poison, destroy, and to isolate certain community. It literally means to take care of. The Bible is clear, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he hath anointed me to preach good news to the poor, which means anybody claiming to know the Lord or putting their hands on Bibles and swearing themselves into office but don't care about the poor just lied. Because there's no way to be anointed and not care about undoing the systems that create poverty and oppression. Jeremiah said, go down to the king's house and tell him, stop hurting people, stop oppressing, stop murdering people. And we know that environmental injustice, environmental racism kills. 700 people die every day in this country from poverty. 250,000 die every year from the effects of poverty as it relates to health care and lack of wages and environmental injustice. We are being called to stop that form of policy murder. 1 John said, you cannot say that you love people whom you see every day, and you love God whom you've never seen, do not love people who you see every day. And then lastly, Ezekiel says in Ezekiel 22 that the people have practiced extortion and robbed the people of their land and oppressed the poor and the needy. And God says, and I need somebody who will stand in the gap. I need an agency that will stop this. Any policy, any practice, any action, present or historic, racism or classism or robbery or theft or poisoning of the water or the land or the air is contrary to our deepest moral values and contrary to the fundamental principle in the Constitution of equal protection under the law. And so this is the right time, right now, for us to be here. It is the right time and the right time. Why? Years ago, folk labeled it environmental racism, environmental classism. They were right to cause systematic poisoning and hurting of the land and the water, whether it be in the black community, the Latino community, the white community, or the indigenous community, or low-wealth community. Anytime you treat people like things and corporations like people, something is wrong. So today, Secretary Reagan and to President Biden and Congressman G.K. Butterfield, you all are fulfilling a prophecy, not merely putting in place a policy. You are fulfilling a long hoped-for promise, and that is that there would be a serious, well-staffed, and well-funded agency that would work to ensure that all communities were protected, regardless of their race, their class, their color. Today, this is the beginning of the fulfillment of the prophecy and the hope of those who sit in the chairs with us. We cannot see them. But if for a moment you would stop, you would feel their wings fanning the air. That's the breeze you're feeling right now. They're here with us. And so it is time to have a 200 staffed agency that will span out across this country to ensure equal protection under the law. It is time to have a person appointed and confirmed by the Senate with the full power of the government to do this. It is time to have $3 billion as a beginning investment, not an ending, but a beginning investment to make sure that staff and money and power are combined to protect black, brown, white, poor, low-wealth, indigenous, Latino communities that have suffered too long from corporations thinking nobody would stop them. Well, the stop is beginning, and the policy is in place. And we thank our homeboy for recognizing that you were sent to D.C. for such a time.
Next, we have a special musical performance. Please welcome to stage the founder of Battery Tour and UN Global Youth Leader, A.Y. Young.
Make some more noise for the Reverend. That was awesome, right? Everybody say outlet. Say plugged in. Oh, it's guys. This is honestly so beautiful seeing this administration powering change, right? Like, guys, and so many different people from different sectors plugged in. Like, I think it's amazing. I was just sitting in a chair just listening, and you know, I just came from New York. I'm one of the 17 United Nations like young leaders, right? I represent the youth in the U.S., designated by like Amina Mohammed and the Secretary General. And when they told me about what you guys were doing here, like, and the history of Warren County, I was like, I have to be here. So make some noise for yourself. Oh, and you guys got my heart beating. Okay, can I do some music? We're gonna do a little music. That cool? Little music saying, hey, this crazy. Yeah, let's hit it. Let's hit it. I mean, we're opening up this like Office of Environmental Justice and Civil Rights, right? Saying, hey, to a new beginning. Hey, when I was 16, thought I'd never make it like the rappers on the TV screen. It was a dream. Now I'm 19 and my little boy is about to meet the world. Topanga, trying to meet you guys. What's up? Stack up the odds. Hey, Jacob, but I'm greatness personified. I've been through the heinous, rigorous training. The city needs a savior. Sick of all the gangs and the swag. Hey, I'm what you asked for. How you guys doing? Make some noise. Oh, we got Mustafa here. We got Congressman. I saw the mayor one time. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you gotta make some noise for the man, though, right? The administrator making all this happen. We can turn this to a concert, guys. Say hey to environmental justice, civil rights. You guys ready? So I say hey, way to the world. Wave it in, guys. The new office, the new change. So I say hey to the world, my day. Something like the radio. Oh, well done, guys. Now we're together. Okay. I'm going to try something really cool. This song's called We Can Change the World. Because I think we're all changing the world, and in order to do it, we got to come together, yeah? Look who's made a man's up. And now I can't find the reasons not to give up. Right? It's gonna take teachers, leaders, dreamers, let's go. And congressmen, what's up? Hey, they always take the right away. You guys wanna help me out? 5 words. Say, we can change the world. You got it? Here we go. Say, we can change the world. Oh, Warren County, that's so. We can change the world. Oh. But we got to come together now, right? We got to come together now. Let's go. See, I don't like it any more than you do. The innate ignorance that bliss is for. Hey, 'cause it's about time, be humble and realize that we are one and the same, unique and one of a kind, right? Brighter days come ahead when we join together. What's up? Push your best foot forward, go and make an effort. They call me AY. I spoke to Akon, Marvin Gaye, we in the grapevine. Let's have a great time, yeah. Influence great minds. I'm trying. Okay, everybody stand up. Let's have a moment. This is history, right? Oh my gosh, here we go. It's a concert. You ready? For the world. Say we can change the world. Sing it out right now if you're in the talking we can change the world. Oh, black, white, yeah. Everybody singing we can change the world. But we got to come together now. We got to come together now. We got to come together now. Oh. Oh, it's like church again. We've got to come together through the wind and stormy weather. Oh, we've got to come together. What we got? What we got? It's for you guys. I just did Times Square. Everybody was singing this, you know what I'm saying? Just testing you out.
Rock you.
What you got? Like I'm from another planet. Say the planet. We gon' say the planet. Everybody looking at me like I'm from another planet. Yeah. Say the planet. This office gon' say the planet. Everybody. This is called Say the Planet. It's about, you know, climate justice, environmental justice, civil rights. It's the anthem. Hey. They acting like we from another planet, Mars. They say climate change ain't a thing. What they talking about? What we know about that? What they carbon offset? Facts. We just wanna act. We ain't sitting back. Solar power. Wind and solar power. Everybody needs the energy. Let's store it up and power the world. Recycle. We need more recycle, but they acting like some followers on Instagram and Twitter, yeah. Make some noise, you guys having a good time? Oh, the office is open, guys. Change is happening. We got a good administration. We got good people. Mufasa in the house. What's up? I was kicking it with him. I met your wife, too. She's super cool. She Crystal, right? Is it Crystal? Yeah, Crystal. Hello, honey. Okay, guys, you might not know the song yet, but let's see if you can sing it, because we're saving the planet together. Here we go. Say the planet. We gon' say the planet. Everybody looking at me like I'm from another planet. Sing, go. Say the planet. What? EPA, you're doing good. Say the planet. You gon' say the planet. Everybody looking at you like you're from another planet. Go home. Say the planet. We gon' say the planet. Everybody. Let's go. Say the planet. Woo. Oh. Guys, that's good. My name's AY. Founder of the Valley Tour. I'm glad to be with you. Let's not forget about the ocean, right? The ocean is alive. Hey, so keep the blast. Let's not forget about the ocean, baby. Hey, so keep the plastic, yeah. Hey, the ocean. not forget about the ocean. All the way in the back, you good? Let's hear you. For you. Go. Planet. We gonna say the planet. Everybody looking at me like I'm from it. One more time, hey. Say the planet. Everybody. Say the planet. I think this administration gonna say the planet. If we come together, maybe, baby, we can say the planet, yeah. Thank you guys so much. The right time, the right administration, the right, yes, okay, I'm out.
Give it up once again for A.Y. Young, everybody. We will now hear from the U.S. Congressman of North Carolina's 1st District, Mr. G.K. Butterfield.
Lost and found. I know the sheriff of Warren County is here. It should be a crime to put me after Bishop Barber. Lock him up. To my friend and your friend, Bishop Barber, thank you for those poignant words today, and we love the work that you're doing, and we just encourage you as you travel to Jackson, Mississippi in just a few minutes to keep doing what you are doing. To my other friend, Dr. Benjamin Chavis, who is from this region of North Carolina, thank you for what you do. Chief Dr. Richardson, it's good to see you again, and thank you for what you do for the Haliwa-Saponi tribe. Look forward to the day that you can be fully recognized by the United States government. To my predecessor in office, Congresswoman Eva Clayton, to all of the rest of you who are very special individuals, and to my friend Roland Martin. I go to Africa and I run into Roland Martin, and I come to Warrenton and I run into Roland Martin. Thank you for coming to Warren County. It's good to be back in Warren County again. I started my legal career here in 1974 at 137 South Franklin Street with the law firm of Clayton and Balance. Don't have time to develop that right now, but that was a very powerful African-American law firm here in this community. T.T. Clayton and Frank Balance. And years later, as a judge, I presided over court here in this courthouse many, many times, and so it's good to be back again. We are honored to have with us today a son of, I believe L.A. said North Carolina. I'm going to say a son of Eastern North Carolina. And for some of you who it matters to, an A&T Aggie. Some of you don't understand this, but it's okay. Just like Vice President Kamala Harris talks about the Divine Nine, she says, I know some of you don't understand it, but it's okay. The administrator is a former member of Governor Cooper's cabinet, and now a member of the cabinet of the President of the United States. We're very proud of Administrator Regan and appreciate his incredible, incredible work. He is my friend, and you should consider him to be your friend. Today, we continue the important work of the environmental justice movement with Administrator Regan's announcement in a few minutes of the opening of the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights. Today's announcement it boldly highlights the incredible leadership of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, and not only combating climate change, but also protecting and fighting for communities that for too long were harmed and ignored. Today's announcement is another way of honoring the birth of the environmental justice movement that began in this county 40 years ago with people like Dolly Burwell, who worked on my staff for almost 15 years, and Congresswoman Clayton's staff for many years, and Dr. Chavis and the Reverend William Kearney, and so many other individuals. As you know, Warren County is filled with rich history.
Not only is this the county that produced the first African-American member of Congress from North Carolina, John A. Hyman, and there's a poster commemorating his life just down the street, but it's also the county that produced the first civil disobedience campaign demanding environmental justice. That campaign, which I vividly remember in 1982, lasted for weeks, receiving international attention. It served as the watershed event for the environmental justice movement, as more than 500 people were arrested to prevent the dumping of toxic waste in a predominantly African-American community. The country soon became awakened to the crisis of environmental racism. This month marks the 40th anniversary of the Warren County protests. As we remember this historic event, I am encouraged by your presence today and thank all of you for the roles that you have played down through the years and will play in the years to come. The struggle continues. Thank you.
Now, we welcome on stage environmental justice and civil rights leaders. Please welcome the founder of the Center for Rural Enterprise and Environmental Justice, Ms. Catherine Coleman Flowers.
I'm one of the short and challenged ones today. But my name is Catherine Coleman Flowers, and I'm honored to be here and deeply humbled. I bring you greetings from Lowndes County, Alabama, because I think that Lowndes County, like Warren County, is also hallowed ground. And I'm very thankful that we are seeing the intersection of the environmental justice and civil rights movement, because on all of your shoulders we stand. And I feel today like, and I'm not a minister, but sometimes I'm moved because of the fact that I came up out of the Christian tradition, growing up in the country, going to church and Sunday school. And today I felt like I was in a revival. When I walked around, I felt like, it probably felt like Christ being among his disciples. But I've been around justice leaders today who have given me so much inspiration. I mean, when I looked around, I was like, oh my God, this would be like, I thought about my parents in heaven and the people when they would see them walk through the doors. That's the way I felt today when I saw a lot of you walking through the doors. And because of the work that we do and people like Administrator Regan, who has come to Lowndes County, I gotta say this, he came, the first time we met him was just prior to the Selma to Montgomery March. He came, and when we talked about his visit there, we thought that it was aptly supposed to start at the SNCC Freedom House. And on yesterday, because I think that God works in divine order, on yesterday I was in Washington at the Atlantic Festival, where we talked about a movie that's called Lowndes County and the Struggle for Black Power. And I said, wow, and I'm leaving here going to Warren County. I mean, this is where it all comes together. And I'm standing on the shoulders of all of you that came before me that made it possible for us to launch a movement around sanitation. And when Administrator Regan came there and went to the SNCC Freedom House to see where the SNCC leaders, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which started at Shaw University, right here in North Carolina, and those young people organized a political party so that with local people in Lowndes County, where they actually exercise their right to vote and to choose people to represent them, which is also one of the tenets of the environmental justice movement. He told us he was going to come back. And on August the 2nd of this year, he fulfilled that promise. He not only came back, he brought 2 other people with him. He brought Mitch Landrieu from the White House, and he also brought with him the USDA secretary. And they made an announcement about sanitation, because even here in North Carolina, and I used to work in Rayford, North Carolina, where I was a teacher at Hope County High School. And I know in North Carolina, we have a lot of the same issues that we have in Alabama and throughout the South, where a lot of people did not get sanitation or access to sanitation. And he announced the Closing the Wastewater Access Gap initiative, the first of its kind to address sanitation issues in Lowndes County, Alabama. You know, and of those counties across the U.S. that are part of this initiative, it also includes 2 counties here in North Carolina. Duplin County is one and Halifax is the other. And this is the first. And we plan to expand that initiative because people have come up to me since I've been here, Administrator Regan, and talked about Sampson County and others that are also dealing with similar issues. But I'm very, very thankful to be here and to be here for this historic announcement. And I think as a child of Lowndes County, Alabama, being here in Warren County means the world to me. And when I was in that hallway watching all these powerful EJ warriors walk through, superheroes. This was like if this was a Marvel comic movie. We have all the superheroes here today. And thank you to the Biden-Harris administration for thinking about the little people. The people in Lowndes County, Alabama, the people in Warren County, the people across the United States that are suffering from environmental injustices based on what they look like, where they live, what their income is. We have to change that. And I'm thankful to this administration. And although I'm not here to speak on behalf of the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council, but I am one of the vice chairs, and I've noticed that a number of our members are here, and I would like to take a point of privilege and ask them to raise their hands because you need to know who they are, the members of the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council who are also serving with me. But I'd like to finally say thank you, Administrator Regan, for being a man of your word. Thank you for being a son of North Carolina, because my daughter is from North Carolina also, because this is where she was born. And I'm very thankful for the fact that all of you are still fighting. And let's get behind this administration and go back home to our communities and make this a reality. Thank you so much.
Now, please welcome the Co-Director for Texas Environmental Justice Advocacy Services, Ana Paris.
I'm a little nervous. I'm usually the one not making the speeches. It's generally my partner in crime who's sitting out there in the audience. But all I can say is I am elated to be here. I wanted to say I'm from Houston, Texas, the energy capital of the nation. We are the petrochemical corridor, the opening. As I stand here today, it is a feeling of elation and hope that this office will carry out the charge of enforcing environmental justice as a civil right, as it should be. We stand here resolute on the shoulders of the many elders who are still here and those who have given their lives for justice for our communities on the front line and the fence line. Our hope is that with this charge, communities like the community that we work in, Manchester, located in the east end of Houston, one of the worst environmental justice communities, studied for years, will finally receive justice under the law, that it will finally receive assistance and stop being a sacrifice zone for the rest of the nation. I'm taking this quote from a good friend of mine. We've spent some time together. Everyone who values living in a place that doesn't make you sick, because in East Houston, there are a lot of sick children, a lot of leukemia, a lot of cancer. We now have another tool in the toolbox to force better decision-making from our government, to combat the foul and ongoing legacy of continued environmental racism. I stand here and I'm thankful for being here, for being allowed to speak, and this is coming from my heart. We thank Administrator Regan and our current administration for standing with communities on the front line and the fence line. Thank you.
Now, please welcome founder and the executive director of the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice, Dr. Beverly Wright.
Good afternoon, everyone. As everyone knows, it's hard to be cute if you're limping. I had an accident. I fell over my own suitcase trying to get here today, but I'm glad to be standing. With so many people speaking, I said to myself, Beverly, what are you going to say? Well, first of all, I am the director of the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice. It was the first environmental justice center to come into existence, and it was run by a woman. It's been 30 years, and I think my center is the only one that has been consistently open for 30 years. There's been a lot of men in this struggle, y'all, but it's been the women who have consistently stood. I needed to say that. That's a shout out to Peggy Shepard and to Donnell Wilkins. We've been standing for the last almost 30 years. But I wanted to talk about feelings, and I kept thinking to myself, what can I say? Everybody will know everything about Warren County, but I wanted to tell you that when I began working in this space, I didn't come deliberately. It was an accident. You know, things just kept happening. So my first introduction to industrial poisoning was really Love Canal in Niagara Falls, where I was in graduate school. And I was stunned to find out that there was a housing project across the street where black people lived, and no one ever thought about the poison that they were receiving, the same amount of poison that the communities were. The white community was getting. And then next was Escambia, Florida, where there was like a mountain of toxic waste. Right in the middle of a black community, a housing project on one side. And then I began to remember traveling from New Orleans to Baton Rouge often to see my relatives who lived there. And on the ride, we'd always run into just horrible smells. And my father would say, smells like progress. Well, that was true to some extent and for some people. But it wasn't the whole truth. It was also that this so-called progress was bringing us sickness and death. So I live in Cancer Alley. It's an 85-mile stretch of land between New Orleans and Baton Rouge that is now home to 152 petrochemical plants and 6 refineries. It was 132 when I started my work, but it changed under a Republican administration and it's been going downhill ever since. We are fighting all kinds of pollution, even the new types of pollution, CCS, you name it, we're fighting it in Louisiana because Louisiana politicians love poison. They just love it. Whenever something comes up, we're first in line to get the permits to receive it. But they love putting it where black people live and poor people live in our state. Warren County, for me, was sort of the beginning of pulling things together. You know, I remember the Warren County incident, but more than that, I remember Ben Chavis being on national television, and he was pondering what to call what he saw. And I remember him saying, this is environmental racism. That was the first time that word had ever been used. And it became our rallying call, you see, because for me, it gave a name to what I was feeling. I knew it was something, I knew it was wrong, But when Ben said environmental racism, I did, yes, that's what this is. Hard for people to imagine that somebody could poison the air that you breathe, the water that you drink, and do it more for you, with you than other people, to discriminately do it. An amazing kind of concept. But out of that also came the Government Accounting GAO office report that Vernice talked about, collecting data to show that what the people were saying was actually true. It was no longer the anecdotal rambling of communities. So when communities in Cancer Alley, and my people are all here, complained that their screens were rusting and falling off the windows about every 3 months. I saw white crosses on the lawns of people who had family members who died at numbers, nosebleeds at night, throwing up, waking up with strange smells. But how do you prove that it's happening? We needed data. And the Warren County actually, I guess, started my career, because then it became important for us to collect data to support what communities were saying. And EPA began to listen. I have to tell you that at this point in time, I'm a little bit, I want to cry, but I want to, just rejoice. I want a margarita. I just feel so good, to be here. And I can't tell you how excited we have been about this administration. The first administration to ever say the word Cancer Alley, and the Louisiana politicians lost their minds when he said it. We're living it. They lost their minds. We all looked at one another and said, did he say Cancer Alley? He did. And then they sent us Administrator Regan. Now, that was a cherry on top of the cake when they sent Regan to us. He actually listened to our communities. He went all through the neighborhoods and met with our governor. And from what I hear, set him straight on a couple of things. I won't share that with you, but we were like, yes! For the first time, it is Cancer Alley. So I'm so happy to see Ben. I haven't seen him in a long time. It's wonderful to see Dolly. I just want to tell you that Dr. Beverly Wright, an HBCU graduate, Grambling State University, the first PhD in my family. We now have 4, including my daughter. So things do get better. And I feel that things are on the right track. Thank you very much.
Before our final speakers take the stage, we'd like to thank the town of Warrenton and the Warren County Board of Commissioners for their continued dedication towards environmental justice and for their hospitality in hosting this historic event today. Thank you. And now, please welcome National Newspapers Publishers Association President and CEO, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis, Jr.
Thank you very much. This is another day that the Lord has made. We're thankful to be back in Warren County, North Carolina. I'm not going to make a speech because my assignment is to introduce the person of the hour, the person of this day, and I would say the person of this century who's going to make a real difference, who is making a real difference on the whole litany of issues that have already been addressed. We all know that what happened here in this county, Dolly, 40 years ago, is still going on in North Carolina, in Alabama, in Louisiana, in Mississippi, but also in Michigan, in Minnesota, in California, in Texas. I could call all the 50 states, but can't stop there. It's going on in Brazil. It's going on in Africa. It's going on in the Caribbean. It's going on all over God's earth. And that's why my favorite scripture is, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Glad to see you, Charles Lee. That's my man. We would have never done that research without Charles Lee. Give that man a hand, Charles Lee. So we've heard what the problems are. Now we're bringing our brother up who's permitting and presenting some solutions. The engagement of environmental justice and civil rights. The engagement of environmental justice, civil rights, and climate justice. The engagement of people's movements, of grassroots movements. The engagement of student activists. The engagement of researchers, of data scientists. And I must say that God does move in mysterious ways. Last night, in another town that starts with a W, Wilmington, Donald Trump shows up in Wilmington, talking more about the past, less about the present, and certainly not about the future. Today, it's about the present and the future. We learn from the past. We don't have to repeat what happened 40 years ago. We got to learn from it. When I first coined the term environmental racism, our communities were being targeted. It wasn't by coincidence. It wasn't just because of poverty. It was because of race, where communities of color were being deliberately targeting for toxic waste and hazardous waste facilities. Now we find out that environmental racism is just not in America. It's all over the world. But we're here today to talk about the solutions. I've introduced a lot of people in my career. I'm honored. I'm so honored that President Joseph Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris had the good sense to put a brother over the Environmental Protection Agency that is not just a figurehead. You know, sometimes some of us get a little position, we forget where we come from. You know, act like we have no tradition. This brother not only represents historically black colleges and universities, he represents a community in Goldsboro, North Carolina, a community in Wayne County, North Carolina, that has had a history like Warren County of standing up, fighting for freedom, justice, and equality. I'm honored, and I want the whole world, I know the media is here, but thank God that we got a freedom fighter at the Environmental Protection Agency. Thank God that Michael Regan is the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency at a time when we're going to not only connect civil rights and environmental justice, but provide solutions to all of the problems that we face in this nation and around the world. Administrator Michael Regan.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I don't know who put me last on this agenda. It's a beautiful day to be in North Carolina, and I want to thank all of you for joining us from all across the country. What an honor to be in the presence of so many giants of the environmental justice and civil rights movement, especially as we conclude a week-long commemoration of the birth of the environmental justice movement, whose roots are firmly planted right here in Warren, North Carolina. You know, as a proud son of North Carolina, I was born and raised, and I was just a child when the state decided to site the PCB landfill in the backyard of a predominantly black community. But I remember my parents discussing the heroism of the women and men who locked arms and laid down in front of those trucks carrying that laced dirt with PCBs. Women and men like Dolly Burwell, Ben Chavis, Reverend Bill Kearney, EPA's own Charles Lee joined protesters in solidarity. A Washington Post story at the time quoted Reverend Luther Brown, a pastor of the largest black congregation in the area, and he said, "We know why they picked us. It's because we're a poor county, poor politically, poor in health, poor in education, and because it's mostly black." But he also said nobody thought people like us would make a fuss. But boy, did they stir the hornet's nest. Because what this community lacked in political power, they made up for in courage. What they lacked in access to education, they made up for it in heart. What they lacked in terms of money in their pockets, they made up for it in faith, in hope, and perseverance. So not only did this community make a fuss, this community ignited a movement. And today, Warren County is synonymous with being the birthplace of environmental justice. You know, those protests 40 years ago were not only a catalyst for the environmental justice movement as we know of today, but it was a real awakeness of the consciousness of this community that had been underserved and overburdened for so many years. It demonstrates the transformative potential that exists when people peacefully mobilize and come together in a common pursuit. As Ms. Dolly Burwell put it, African Americans determined that henceforth and forevermore will have some say in the government that was controlling our destiny. So despite losing the initial battle, these visionary women and men sparked something so much bigger, so much more powerful. And that's what we're here today to honor and to uplift. The reason we've reached this moment when environmental justice is front and center to President Biden's agenda and EPA's agenda, is because of the unrelenting advocacy of so many of you here today. It's because of faith leaders and civil rights leaders, the labor community, the environmental justice community, folks like Vernice Miller-Travis, Dr. Bob Bullard, Reverend Barber, Dr. Wright, Juan and Anna Paris, and young leaders like my good friend, Lamisha Whittington, William Barber III, who are carrying this sacred mission forward. These are the people who have dedicated their lives to standing up and speaking out against racism and injustice and inequality. And they are finally being heard at the highest levels of the land, from Warren County to the White House. On day one of this administration, President Biden directed every single member of his cabinet to embed environmental justice and racial equity into all of our decision making. And you know, I'm proud to say that EPA is at the heart of that mission. As administrator, I've had the privilege to travel across the country and see firsthand the injustices communities of color, low-income communities, and tribal communities continue to endure. Last November, I launched the Journey to Justice Tour, and I spent time in Jackson, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, meeting with communities on their front porches, in their churches, and in their schools. And the conditions that I saw on the ground were deeply troubling. I'm talking about children going to school right next door to chemical plants. Elementary school students using porta potties because of failing water infrastructure. And generations of families living in the shadows of petrochemical facilities. In my time as administrator, I've met with mothers whose children have been poisoned by the lead in the water. The water they drink, elders, our grandparents who must bathe with bottled water, families watching as the flood waters continue to rise. Perhaps one of the most egregious examples of systemic injustice, you've heard it today, is Lowndes County, Alabama. Lowndes County, which sits right in the middle of Highway 80 between Selma and Montgomery, was a wellspring for the civil rights movement. The birth of the Black Panther Party. Lowndes County became known as Bloody Lowndes because when organizers and protesters attempted to register black people, they were beaten and battered, even evicted from their homes. So I visited Lowndes County so that I could see up close the injustices that folks have been living with for decades. Pipes protruding from the side of their homes, spilling raw sewage in the same places where their children play. I'll never forget two beautiful children that I met, their toys scattered around a lagoon filled with waste. It was as if these children were conditioned to accept that this is the way it's supposed to be. But that's not the way it's supposed to be, not for those children in Lowndes County, not for the children in Jackson, Mississippi, not for the children anywhere in the United States of America. So from Lowndes County, Alabama to Warren County, North Carolina, these communities show us that the fight for civil rights and environmental justice are inseparable. For health justice, for racial justice, for economic justice, for climate justice. We cannot be for one without being for the other. President Biden and Vice President Harris, they understand this viscerally. The president and vice president see everybody for who they are and who they can be when they're given the opportunity to soar. So from Justice 40 to the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law to the historic Inflation Reduction Act, we are finally ensuring that communities who have long borne the burden of pollution see, breathe, and feel the benefits of the federal government's investments. It's about changing how our government works and who it works for, something that so many of you today have dedicated your lives to realizing. So if we're going to change how the system works, we have to change the structure of the system. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I could not be prouder to announce that today EPA is creating a new national office charged with advancing environmental justice and external civil rights. We are elevating environmental justice and external civil rights to the highest levels at EPA, placing this critical work on an equal structural footing with our Office of Air, our Office of Water, and all of EPA's other national program offices. This new office, the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, will dedicate more than 200 EPA staff to solely focus on environmental justice and civil rights. These talented career and political individuals will also be responsible for administering over $3 billion for environmental grants, environmental justice grants. We toss around money these days, so I like to say billion would it be? Billion would it be? To communities who have not had access, who haven't had a seat at the table, who haven't had the infrastructure in place to apply for these dollars, and who have been underserved for far too long. This is not only good for the community, it will improve the agency as a whole. It will improve our ability to infuse equity, civil rights, and environmental justice to every single thing we do, from our regulations, to our enforcement, to our policy. It will ensure the vigorous enforcement of civil rights laws that together, with all of these actions, prohibit discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, as well as sex, disability, and age. It will memorialize the agency's commitment to delivering justice and equity for all, ensuring that no matter who sits in the Oval Office or no matter who heads EPA, this work will continue long beyond all of us to be at the forefront and the center of everything this agency does. You know, when I first stepped into this role, I made a pledge to every person in this country who's ever had to worry about the safety of the water they drink or the air that they breathe. I pledged to them that everything we do, everything that I do at EPA, will be rooted in the realities and the demands and the aspirations of communities like Warren County, North Carolina, Mossville, Louisiana, Jackson, Mississippi, and so many others whose future hasn't always felt certain. We will use our time here and our own capacity to make change in the pursuit of a more just nation where all children can thrive. We will live and breathe our mission to protect people's health and the planet. And we will do so by ensuring that all people, no matter the color of their skin, how much money they have in their pocket, or the community that they live in, realize the full protections of environmental laws. We will ensure that a child from the south side of Chicago is treated with the same level of dignity and respect and compassion as a child from any wealthy suburb across this country. My brothers and sisters, this is essential work. It's the work that I came to this administration to do, and it's the work that you all have been demanding for generations. So together, that is what we will do. Together, that is what we will do. Let's go. Thank you all.
EPA Administrator Michael S. Regan. The Administrator will now memorialize this historic moment with the official signing to establish the Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights.